Hello everyone, Sable here with the last week 5 match. It is me versus Maris, and as usual, I don't really have much of a preamble on these ones. If you're wondering about that compared to my Uber's coverage, it's because there's not really an established history here because it's a brand new tier, so I can't say this player favors this kind of team. In Ubers, it's a little bit easier to do that because there's actually no changes to the tier, so I can say what people have historically brought. But here I really can't because we're all figuring it out. So I'm just gonna hop right in. Dragonite lead versus Gyarados lead. I have to say, when I saw this during this match, I was extremely frustrated because Gyarados is literally the perfect counter to Dragonite, outspeeding it by just 1 base point. And I was thinking, why the hell would she lead Gyarados into me? Because I've never led a Dragonite before. I figured if anything, Tentacruel might be a lead that she might pick into me because I do lead a lot of fire types, which is also a valid reasoning for Gyarados. So it makes sense in that front, but when I saw this in the moment, I was like, I swear I've not been leading fires that much recently, and yet here's a Gyarados anyway. So this was pretty awful as the worst possible lead into me. And she mid-grounds Body Slam, pretty reasonable play. And then I get crit T-bolted in the face, which is pretty awful, although it does come out a little bit neutrally because I'm going to paralyze the Gyarados. Still, at this point, I'm kind of thinking, well, this sucks, but at least my Dragonite can still do something later. Kangaskhan comes in and is going to clean up the Lapras. Earthquake comes out expecting a possible Haunter pivot or something, but it's just my own Kangaskhan that's going to come in now. Body Slam, counter, and so this is rough, but at least I win the speed tie and hit the Hyper Beam. But overall, just from that Gyarados lead, things are feeling a bit tricky now. So now I got to send in Persian and hope that things go my way. Golem comes in, I slash first, of course. And now here, I'm kind of thinking she's probably going to pivot, but I am also thinking she could just immediately boom me. She's the kind of person I think would make a call out play on me. So I choose the Bubble Beam here, but unfortunately that's going to put me really behind. But I did think, there's a reasonable chance this goes horribly wrong. And she sings and hits my Hypno on the switch. I feel like I didn't really have many better options than go to Hypno and trust that either a Blizzard or a 55% move, either a Blizzard comes through and I don't get frozen, or 55% move comes through and I get ahead. But I get unlucky this time, and now this game is pretty unplayable for me from here. I kind of just have to hope Kadabra gets everything imaginable. But there's still a full Hypno to deal with and back, so how much can I really ask for, right? So I'm going to go to my own Hypno, try to wake it up, because that's really the only way I see that I can play this game. I think if I'm in her shoes, I'm going hard Kang right away, but she's maybe thinking that I might pivot. The thing is, she's very well known for running Hypnos that have only Psychic as an attacking move, so I'm thinking, my odds to wake here are pretty good if I stay in, but I'm getting dropped, and that's meaning that I'm getting way, way less turns to actually wake, so I go to Dragonite, and immediately eat yet another drop, which means that now Dragonite's 2-hit KO'd instead of 3-hit KO'd. She goes to Kangaskhan. Thanks to the drop, I have no ways to kill this on entry. Even, I'm pretty sure Blizzard still comes up short there, so because of that drop, she has a very safe Kangaskhan entry, which means I have to take a Hyper Beam to the face somewhere, or I guess a Body Slam. But the Kangaskhan is just going to para through my Dragonite anyway, so between the special drop and the para slam full para, I just kind of am just out of options very quickly here. Kadabra and Persian have to get literally everything for me to have any chance to win this game now, but it's pretty hard with a Hypno there. So Persian, gonna get out, gonna go to Kadabra and just hope that I can get some luck. That's really my only way back into this, is to throw some T-Waves, but there's also a Doug Trio, which is just going to pretty much make this game unplayable for me. I stay in and just sack and just hope that somehow Persian is going to cheat everything and win the game, because it is kind of sort of theoretically possible from here, but I don't get the Hyper Beam crit, so this game's just over. So a little bit unlucky overall, but I do think she called me on the lead, which I have to assume this Gyarados was meant to be catching fire leads, which I think is a little odd since I haven't really run fire leads that much since the first couple weeks of the tournament. But to be fair, it's only like week 5. I think it's not unreasonable to think I might go back to some week 1 ideas. But unfortunate for my lead choice, and just overall doesn't work out here. Even though I think the rest of my team is relatively okay in a Golem or Doug, I think the lead worked out badly enough with that Gyarados crit to put me too far behind to play. And then the Dragonite just dying outright to the Kang also didn't really help. So game 1 goes her way, and we're going to go right into game 2. I ran something a little less orthodox here, which is why there's a Haunter lead idea, but I did catch her on her lead and actually hit my move, which is nice. Haunter very inconsistent, but choosing to actually get moves here, and I go to Kangaskhan anticipating that she might go to a Hypno or something like that. And I get a bit of an advantage to start this game. So my Kang gets the Body Slam her Kang on entry. And now she tries to pivot on me, thinking I might like maybe Earthquake or something, or Blizzard expecting a counter, but I just keep attacking. So I think so far the game is looking a bit in my favor, and I have my own Moltres here, so I don't really want to let her get any damage on my Kang. And I'm feeling like this is pretty favorable to me now, but things will get interesting, we'll say. So far, right, it looks pretty good. My Moltres is going to get a free agility and just set up in her face and get some damage. So now Moltres is going to claim this KO and then get some free attacks off somewhere else. Not much revealed that can come into it. Looking like a Lapras or Hypno is going to have to do that. So she goes to Hypno and I'm thinking, great, I'll take my 40%. And then she T-waves it here, which tells me it's going to be a rest. But this is still very favorable to Moltres. So I decide to push it a bit further, and she clicks Reflect, which is interesting to me. Obviously, the Hyper Beam miss, I'd say, is kind of a neutral thing. If I hit, I only do about 20% to it, which means it's going to rest on me. But on the flip side, I could crit it very easily, and there's not much reason, like, she can't actually KO me here. So here, if I had gotten the Fire Blast off, it would have been the most forced rest of all time, and I would have had a pretty decent chance to take it out with Fire Blast through Para, but I had other things I could go to that also would have helped. Unfortunately, this is where the game begins to shift out of my favor. So a second Para in a row, and a third Para in a row, and a fourth Para in a row, and now she's got a full Hypno back for free without me getting to do a single thing about it. If I had even gotten 1 or 2 hits, I could have forced the rest loop and gone to this Articuno, which would have had a much better chance of dealing with it. But now I'm sending my Articuno into a full health Hypno that just got an entirely free rest while running an extremely greedy sap. So it's Thunderwave Reflect Psychic Rest. In other words, this thing does no damage to Psychic types and really has no capacity to win the game or apply pressure aside from Psychic, which falls apart entirely versus a Kadabra or a Hypno or anything like that, or a Slowbro. But it gets a whole Moltres for free without even losing a single point of HP thanks to, what was it, 4, 5 consecutive paras? So I have to send in Kuno to try to force it out, send in Lapras, or send in Haunter on Lapras, which clicks Sub for some reason. I'm not 100% sure what the idea was there over just throwing out a Blizzard, which would have gotten pretty much the same results. But I guess it kind of encourages me to keep T-bolting, which lets Raichu in. And here I'm just pretty happy to just boom this. So boom, crit is definitely lucky because it takes out Raichu, but I did have a way to KO that regardless with a revenge kill, so I wasn't too worried. But because it goes down fully, I can send in Kang. I Blizzard here thinking there might be a counter coming, and she does the same. Unfortunately, this leaves it just out of Hyper Beam range for me, and then she crits me, which puts me into Hyper Beam range, so now this is looking a lot worse than it was a second ago. And she wins the tie, and now this game just suddenly got way worse than it had to be for me. So here's Kadabra, which would have revenged the Raichu earlier, but now is instead relegated to clicking Seismic Toss into this Hypno, just to force the Kang out. I think I wish I'd T-Waved there, but it's just such a risky call into someone who could consider sacking it. So Kuno has to come in on a T-Wave, and now comes the joy of dealing with this Hypno again, who thankfully this time I actually hit. But now Lapras is obviously going to come in on this Kuno, and I have to figure out how to make some plays to get through this with my Molt Kuno team, which, spoiler alert, doesn't have a Lapras. So I just push for some damage, thinking my Kadabra has a chance to clean this up here if I just can get through this and do a little damage to the Hypno. So I go for it with Kuno. I get the Hyper Beam crit, and the Lapras is down. It kind of doesn't really matter that it was a crit because there was nothing to switch to anyway when Kadabra came into Revenge. I think a non-crit would have pretty much been the same outcome and still landed us in the same spot. But here I send in Hypno because I'm thinking all I need to win this game is to get a drop or two on her Hypno, which is going to be forced to rest very quickly. One drop, right, and then Kadabra just comes in and cleans through everything. I can't send Kadabra first because Kangaskhan can just crit Hyper Beam my Hypno and end the game. So I need to save my speed control. So I send my Hypno first, and I want to start applying Paralysis and Special Drops, and basically even like 1 or 2 drops should win the game. So I have a million turns to get that because she can't switch out of this without losing something. But I'm going to speed this up because this is a long game. So I'm going to go up to normal speed for now and speed it up more. But second Psychic, no drop. Third Psychic, no drop. Fourth Psychic, still no drop. And she starts Psychicking me. And wouldn't you know it, immediately drops. And another Psychic and another drop. And I para and I para. And another Psychic and another drop. So I do this to force the rest, but ultimately, this game is looking pretty unwinnable at this point now because I'm going to have to give up Kadabra to this, and another Psychic and still no drop, another Psychic and still no drop. So I've clicked Psychic 6 times now at a 33% chance of a drop and not gotten one. She clicked it 3 times on my Hypno and got 3 drops, so I would say that's kind of unlucky for me. So now I have to go for the T-Wave, try to make some plays. I go back to Hypno, trying to call her out. And this time, at least, I don't take a drop. And she thinks here, and part of the reason I did this was to bait her into thinking that I might consider clicking a rest, that I might try to get Hypno in on T-Wave and click rest in front of her and win the game that way. So I did manage to bait her here, and the Seismic Toss takes out Kang, which makes it so now Kadabra can actually 1v1 this Hypno. So now I'm thinking, oh hey, there's actually a chance for me to win this game. So I click Seismic Toss again. I'm just taking whatever damage I can and seeing if I can maybe break through. We both para a couple times, but she finally gets a rest off, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this doesn't look great anymore, but I just have to kind of toss it down and get what I can. And I para, and she wakes, and she wins the tie and takes out my Hypno. But now I am feeling a little bit better that she's only got 7 Psychics left, and I've got 14. I do need to get some drops, or just win the Seismic Toss versus Para's War. So a para here would win the game, but doesn't happen. And now we're going to speed it up because it's going to be a bit of a long one. So I'm keeping my Kadabra healthy and going for Psychic drops, thinking that, if I get a couple drops, I can break through this. So I finally get one. I go for another para to keep it slower than me in case I get dropped. And she gets another drop on me, which is starting to make this game look really bad because I still have to kill the Venomoth at the end. Now, most likely, I'm going to 2-hit KO it from the current status, so I just need to not get dropped like a zillion times, and I finally start achieving some drops of my own. So I keep the pressure on, keep looking for some paralysis to go my way so I can actually kill this thing. So more tosses. Another attempt for a drop on the sleep turn. I'm looking for drops to try to get this into range for me to take it out with Psychic, but eventually I am going to speed it up because eventually I do start stalling a little bit. So another Psychic, another drop, and now this is starting to look a little bit better for me, but I get dropped again, and now the Venomoth is starting to look like a bit of a concern. You can kind of stall me by going back and forth, so I start looking for Seismic Tosses to try to get a little more ahead. She's way faster than me now because of the reapply. So I do think the correct move for me with 7 rests left on the table is just to recover stall this and keep clicking Seismic Toss and make it use up the rests because I can definitely out PP it. But after 3 drops, this is looking iffy because now I need 3 hits to kill the Venomoth. The thing is, though, Venomoth shouldn't be able to KO my Kadabra, which means I should have a pretty good chance to win, and this Hypno only has 1 Psychic, so I start to stall it a little bit, see if I can waste some rest PP that way. And we're going to go to Hyper Fast because this takes a little bit of a while, but I'll pause when we start doing something. So she goes back and forth. I know she's not going to keep Venomoth in on me and risk it until she does, but I pair out on the turn that I actually attacked it, so she burns a sleep turn for free, because unfortunately I just paralyzed when I actually was going to Psychic it. So here I start attacking again a little bit. Go back to normal. So like now I'm hitting it and getting some drops and going for seismic tosses again. Now she's only got 4 rests. I see I've got 19 seismic tosses. I can force this to run out of rests very quickly. And oops, I accidentally hit skip on a turn, but I'm going to go back to fast because we're going to be here for a bit. So with only 1 psychic left, I'm not really worried about this Hypno attacking me, just stalling me out. So I want to click some more seismic tosses. She's resting early to not risk para, but the thing is that also means she's running out of rests very quickly with only 2 left to my 15 seismic tosses. And we're in a bit of a stalemate here because I can't get any attacks off. I go to para it again so that I can, toss it down and hope that it paras. The paralysis is really the thing that forces her to rest early, although here I think that resting this early is very much a mistake and means that I'm going to have way too many attacks for her to deal with. And so at this point, I think because I baited the Kangaskhan, this game should be over. But attack number 1, I need a crit, a drop, or just something, but the Venomoth wakes up, it crits the Kadabra, which, by the way, without a crit, that was a 3-hit KO, which means I had a lot more turns. And I kill it here, except I paralyze. So yeah, I'm going to go back on slow just to come back to those turns a little bit so that they can actually play out. But yeah, unfortunately, after doing all of that to recover from the Moltres quad or quintuple para and some other stuff, and the Hypno getting 3 drops on me while I got 0 out of 6, and baiting the Kang in so I could take that out, the Venomoth gets a fast wake, partially on the back of me, paralyzing on a turn that I actually would have attacked it, and then crits me, and then dodges the Psychic. So everything kind of went wrong in this one. I mean, it's not Maris's fault, but I definitely felt very frustrated at this game, and it's part of why I'm getting a little bit tired of playing in UUCL, if I'm being totally honest. But what can you do? Sometimes the game decides that you don't get to win, and we get games like this. So I can't be too upset about it. Ultimately, like, it's just the game we play. I am a little bit frustrated at Pokemon in general lately for that reason, because there has been a lot of RNG in my recent matches. So sometimes you just get games like these and you can't really do anything about it. So either way, the game gives, the game takes away. It doesn't take anything away from whatever my opponents did, but it does get tiring on my end. So such is life. Anyway, that's the end of week 5. We only had 3 matches this week. So if you enjoyed that, feel free to drop a comment or like the video or subscribe if you want to see more of these. Hopefully there will be a little bit more less RNG in the future ones, and I can talk about the games a little more instead of talking about the para, and the para, and the para, and the freeze, and whatever else happens. But RBY UU is early in development. It's got some stuff left to work out, some kinks left to work out that'll hopefully reduce the RNG a little bit more. There's been talk about banning Confuse Ray, banning accuracy lowering moves, even banning Hypno, so all of that would probably help. But for now, here we are, so hope you enjoyed watching that one, and I'll see you for the week 6 ones.